Okay, good afternoon. Are you able to see the screen and are you able to hear me? If so, just say yes on chat. Yes, okay. Thank you all for joining the webinar. I guess there were some technical glitches. Are you able to see the screen? I guess there were some technical glitches. So just say yes. Let's get started. So this webinar is organized mainly for taxpayers with aggregate turnover above 20 crores. You are all probably aware that e-invoicing is going to start from the 1st of April 2022. We'll go over the basics of e-invoicing, understand what the APIs are, how does APIs work. We'll have a live demo of the API and Excel integrations. This is the outline of the webinar. I'll very briefly mention what an e-invoice is, what the legal provisions are, and show you where you can go and create an account in the government portal, and how to integrate through Excel APIs and the other solutions that we provide. We'll also talk about how to generate and validate an e-invoice and how to issue an invoice to the customer. What the legal provisions are, and show you where you can go and create an account in the government portal, and how to integrate through Excel APIs and the other solutions that we provide. We'll also talk about how to generate and validate an e-invoice and how to issue an invoice to the customer. And show you where you can go and create an account in the government portal and how to integrate through Excel APIs and the other solutions. A brief introduction about GSTZen. GSTZen provides GST return filing, reconciliation software, and various other tools. We have more than 30,000 users all over India. We have lakhs of reports downloaded from our software in a year. We have our users. Okay, I get the feedback there is some echo. Our team is looking into it. Various other tools. We have more than 30,000 users all over India. We have about 20 crore invoices in our database, and we process millions of invoices every day. Okay, I get the feedback there is some echo. Our team is looking into it. Hold on. Is it better now? So here is the progress of e-invoice in India. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. I'm sorry, I'm projecting from one screen, talking from the other. We have some issues which you're not able to resolve right away. Thanks for your patience. So here is the progress of e-invoice in India. It started first on the 1st of October 2020 with taxpayers with turnover above 500 crores. And then the limit was reduced to 100 crores from January 1st, 2021. 50 crore taxpayers went live in April 2021. And now the government is proposing that taxpayers with turnovers 20 crores and above will go live on the 1st of April. So we have about 22 days to go. So here is a simple picture which we use to illustrate the need for e-invoicing. So here are pictures of different types of connectors. As people are aware, there are so many different countries of the world. They all have different electrical and electronic standards, and they have different connectors where you need to plug into. You can think of the invoices prepared in various software, like there are so many billing softwares. People prepare invoices in Excel, people use Tally, people use SAP, so on and so forth. All these different software, right? You can think of these different connectors. They don't just speak to each other. People who travel abroad sometimes carry a universal adapter You can use the same adapter to connect your laptop or phone charger into the power socket of any country. And that is the desire with e-invoicing. Instead of different people generating different types of invoices in different software, the government wants everybody to come to a universal and uniform standard. So let's go over the legal provisions of e-invoicing. So these are the notifications. Central Tax Notification 61/2020. This is the one which enabled e-invoicing for 500 crores and above. There have been periodic notifications for the other taxpayers, and now the most recent notification 1/2022 makes e-invoicing mandatory for 20 crores and above taxpayers from April 1st, 2020. So these are the most important and relevant notifications and the rules for e-invoicing. Let me just talk about, so the notification 68/2019, this changes rule 48. And so what is the change in rule 48? There are 3 sub-rules that are added. What the sub-rule says is that rule 48 sub-rule 4 says that you have to prepare an electronic invoice as per the format given by the government. You have to register the invoice with the government's websites, and you have to receive an IRN or invoice reference number. If you do these things, then you have what is called an electronic invoice. Now, this is what sub-rule 4 says. Now, sub-rule 5 says invoice other than the one prepared in sub-rule 4 is not a valid invoice. For example, if you prepare an invoice in paper, print it, sign it, seal it, does not matter. It's not an invoice. Only if you prepare it electronically, register with the government and get the acknowledgement, that is an invoice. That's what these 2 provisions of the rule says. Further, sub-rule 6 says multiple copies of the invoice is not required. So today the rule says you have to prepare an invoice in 3 copies, the original for the recipient, the duplicate for the transporter, and the triplicate for the supplier. Hold on. Is the audio fine? So there are 3 copies of invoice are required. What the notification says is that multiple copies of invoice are not required. Just the electronic invoice, if you send it to your recipient, that is sufficient. So there are other notifications which specifies that this is the common portal. There are 10 common portals notified. Only one of them, run by the National Informatics Center (NIC), is live. Then the other notification 60/2020 specifies what are the fields. These are the fields. This is the information that needs to go into the e-invoice. So e-invoice applies to every taxpayer with turnover above 20 crores. So there are a few exceptions. So if you are a special economic zone unit, if you are registered inside an SEZ, then you do not need to generate e-invoice. There are also other types of businesses that are not required to generate e-invoice. If you are a banker, if you are a finance company, NBFCs, they are not required to generate e-invoices. If you are a transport agency, not required to generate e-invoices. Passenger transportation service, e-invoice is not required. And if you are selling film tickets, cinematographic films in multiplex screens, for these types of businesses, e-invoice is not required. So I see the question about EOU. If your registration is SEZ registration, you do not need to generate e-invoice, otherwise you should. So let's quickly go over which transactions are covered under e-invoicing. So in this slide, the transactions that are covered under e-invoicing are shown in green color, and the transactions that are not covered under e-invoicing are shown in red color. So let's talk about the type of documents. Invoices. If you have a tax invoice, you need to generate e-invoice. If you are issuing a credit note, you have to generate an e-invoice for the same. When we say e-invoice, you can think of it as e-document. E-invoice refers to e-invoice or e-credit note and e-debit note. The common term for all of that is e-invoice. If you're issuing a bill of supply, for example, if you're selling exempt goods, let's say a bag of rice, there is no tax on rice, it's exempt. If you're selling only rice, you will not issue an invoice, you will issue a bill of supply. For a bill of supply, e-invoice registration is not required. Delivery challan, e-invoice not required. ISD, e-invoice is not required. Now let's talk about the type of transactions. Even within the invoices, not all invoices are required to be registered and generated in the IRP portal. The e-invoice registration is not required. Let's take in the example, the business to business invoice, e-invoice is required. Business to government or B2G, e-invoice is required. Export invoices, e-invoice is required. A B2C transaction, e-invoice is not required. Some people prepare RCM invoices for a purchase from URD, e-invoice not required. If you're doing an RCM sale, e-invoice is required. RCM purchase, no invoice, registration not required. Import of goods, import of services, for these transactions, e-invoice is not required. So primarily B2B and export. These are the types of transactions for which e-invoice is required. Let's talk about registration. So the government has set up these portals. There is a e-invoice sandbox portal. So if you are a software developer, you should go and register in this portal. If you are a taxpayer, there is an e-invoice one trial.nic.in. You can go and register in this portal and generate e-invoices on a trial basis. Be very careful. We have seen lots of taxpayers making this mistake. They are generating either through software or in the portal, generating on the wrong portal, generating on the trial portal. So be very careful. The official portal is the one which is given at the end. There is only one official portal, that is e-invoice1.gst.gov.in. I understand that these portals are not open yet for taxpayers above 20 crores. I think the registration is expected to start sometime around April 15th or 16th. Once that happens, taxpayers should go and register on these portals. And the simple way to explain to you is this is very similar to eWaybill. So this is a different portal like eWaybill. So there are these other portals. You can go get the client list of taxpayers who are generating e-invoices. You can get your status. You can also have view some bulk verification tools. We'll show some of these things today. Okay. Now let's talk about the process for generating e-invoice. On the left hand side of the screen, you have the seller. So the seller prepares the e-invoice document in their software. So the e-invoice document has to be prepared in a particular format. The best way I can explain to you is the e-invoice JSON is similar to your GSTR1 JSON. People prepare GSTR1 in so many softwares, or they use the government's offline utility. Excuse me. So whatever utility you're using, you are preparing some document, some JSON, you are uploading that in the government portal. Similarly, e-invoice, there is a standard, there is a format. You will prepare the document and upload it either through APIs or directly in the software. You will go to the e-invoice website and register it. Once you have registered in the e-invoice website, the document will flow from there into the eWaybill system, will flow from there into the government portal. Your GSTR1 will get automatically populated. And you'll also get back a digitally signed invoice. This is a proof that you have a valid invoice. So this is this slide. We will see the workflow of e-invoicing. So you have the supplier. The e-invoice goes from the supplier to the GST system. There are, as I said, there are multiple registrars. Right now, NIC is the only registrar. And from there, it goes to the eWaybill portal. it goes to the GSTR1 populated by the government portal. From there, it goes to the recipients 2A or now 2B. And there is also facility in the future to send this to bankers to enable other financing activities based on the electronic invoice that is prepared. And finally, that document can also be sent to populate your books of accounts. And for example, you can import into your tally all these details, these transactions. These things can happen automatically. Let's go over a few terms and definitions. The most common term that you will hear in e-invoicing is called a invoice reference number. So this invoice reference number is 64 digits or 64 alphanumeric characters long. You can see an example at the bottom of the screen. It starts with 45, 453, C0 and ends with EE4. So this is a very long text. You should be able to see this. And frankly, practically, this is not meant for human beings. Nobody is going to read this. Nobody is going to see this and type it anywhere. Maybe you copy paste it somewhere to check, but this is mainly for machines. So these are what goes into the e-invoice is given here. This is an example, but however, again, you can ignore. All that I would suggest that you understand from this is that against every number, every invoice, one number is issued by the government. That's it. You can think of it as just like e-way bill number is given by the government. You can think that the invoice reference number is given by the government. Of course, all software providers like GSTZen will have to manage these IRNs and make it available. But for the regular taxpayer, you can ignore this. So the next concept you will hear is called the invoice registration portal. The best way I can explain IRP is to compare it to the e-way bill portal. Just like there is a portal for preparing e-way bills, viewing your e-way bill history, there is a portal for e-invoicing. Otherwise, there is nothing special about this. You go to this portal, prepare, or you use software like GSTZen or Tally. From your software, you press a button, the data goes to the IRP, invoice registration portal. And from the registration, it goes to the registry, it goes to the government portal, it goes to the e-way bill portal, and so on. So there are a few important things to know about the IRP invoice registration portal. As I have already mentioned, this is run by National Informatics Center, which is a department of the Government of India. There are other IRPs that will come in the future. The main job is to verify and acknowledge the e-invoice. The IRP will not verify whether your invoice is correct. For example, if you are selling a computer, instead of mentioning computer, if you say, I am selling this water bottle, IRP will not care whether your invoice is correct or wrong. Or for example, let's say computer price is some 50,000 rupees. You bill it for 5,000 rupees. Or water bottles price is 200 rupees. You bill it for 25,000 rupees. Or water bottles tax rate is 12%. You bill it 28%. IRP portal does not care about the correctness of your data. IRP will do very basic validation. Whether you have mentioned 12%, they will check. If you mention 13%, IRP will report an error. But whether the HSN code is correct and the rates are correct, all of that is your responsibility. IRP will take that. Simply, you can think of IRP as a security guard in some office. They will take whatever data you are given, they'll put some stamp and say, acknowledge I have received it. They will not look into the contents of the document. Anyway, so IRP will verify, it will acknowledge and give it back to you. And how long does the IRP take? It verifies in a blink of an eye. In less than 100 milliseconds, the IRP will verify and give you back the verified e-invoice. So the IRP retains the invoice for about 24 hours to 72 hours. I think today IRP keeps the invoices only for 72 hours. So if you are a taxpayer, business owner, you should be very careful. IRP is not going to store your invoices. You need to back up the invoice data in your company computers, or you should use service providers like GSTZen who will keep this data, because I will tell you from our experience with the large taxpayers. Some taxpayers will come after 6 months. They will say, hey, our backup has crashed, or for 15 days, our systems were not working. Those 15 days invoices we have lost. Can you retrieve them and give it to me? Yeah, if you have generated through GSTZen, we will give them to you. But if you have not done that, you will lose them forever. And we have seen people 2 years later come and say our customer is not paying us. Can we get all the original details? Those details will not be available. So IRP will keep this only for 24 hours. Beyond that, it will not have details of the invoice later. So again, here is an example of what is the response that the IRP sends. All this will look, this is mainly for programmers. So business owners like CAs, finance people, ignore these things. You don't have to read too much, but roughly as a human being, you should be able to understand there is an acknowledgement date, there is an acknowledgement number, there is the IRN number, 64 characters. Hold on. Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, looks like yes. So this is the response from the IRP. You have a signed invoice, which is about 4,000 characters, signed QR code, which is about 1,000 characters. Again, these things you can see, you can read the text on the screen. It starts with EYJH. All this is meaningless to ordinary people. Software developers, IT professionals, whatever data comes here, save it in your computer, and that is pretty much it. This information, how to view this, how to verify this, I will show you very practical live demo in a few minutes. By the way, if you want to generate an e-way bill, the e-way bill will also get generated. There will be the e-way bill number. So here on the screen, you can see how to view the invoice in the government portal. So the government has set up this portal where anybody can go and verify the e-invoice. So if you go and verify there, you will be able to see details that this is a digital signature that is valid. You will be able to see the QR code. You will be able to see the IRN number, all that. Again, this is a screenshot. I will show you a live demonstration with a real invoice that we have generated shortly. I will show that. So the signed QR code contains lots of details about the invoice, like the invoice number, date, generation date, and so on. If you are printing the invoice, you should print the invoice with the QR code. Using the QR code, the government has provided an application. Anybody can scan the application and they will be able to verify that this is a valid e-invoice. So here is the decoded signed QR code. So these are the details in the signed QR code. It has the buyer's GST number, invoice number, date, IRN number, and the amount. So this is the minimal details that are there in the signed QR code. Any officer on the road, they can scan and quickly verify what is there in the invoice. So let me talk about how to generate an invoice in GSTZen. This picture, you can think of e-invoice generation using any software. We have just mentioned GSTZen. For any software that you have, you will prepare the invoice in your ERP accounting software. Whatever details you have prepared, those details will be sent to your software or to the government portal. They'll get validated. That validated e-invoice will be sent to the IRP portal. The IRP portal will acknowledge it, send back the digital signature, QR code, IRN number. You will save those details in your software. Also, GSTZen has a facility to automatically email the invoice, send a PDF, the acknowledgement JSON, so on and so forth. So these facilities exist, but this is the overall picture of how e-invoicing works. From your software, the data has to go to the government portal. And the way I usually explain is, if you want to go from place A to B, you can go by cycle, you can go by walk, you can go by car, you can take a flight. There are so many different solutions for generating e-invoices. Some of those solutions happen instantaneously. Some of those involve a lot of manual activity. Again, there are so many different solutions. Different people have different integrations based on their comfort level. But the concept is the same. From your computer to the government and back, the data has to flow. So GSTZen has multiple solutions where we have, again, these solutions are shown in the increasing order of ease of use. The solutions on the right are very easy to use. At the blink of an eye, in Tally, you press a button, e-invoice will get generated. On the left hand side are solutions which are a little bit slow. You have to prepare data in the Excel and you'll have to drag and drop it. The e-invoice will get generated. I will show you a demo of some of these things shortly. I am going to go over a few frequently asked questions. However, in the meanwhile, if anybody wants to ask a question, please raise your hand or type it in the chat. I will answer those questions up till now. If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and I can unmute you. So if you do not have an SEZ, yeah, unmute. So Vijay Lakshmi, you can talk.
Actually, I'm calling from Extend Electronics.
We can't hear.
We are a unit, but we don't. Hello. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, good evening. We are an EOU unit, so we don't need to register in the e-invoice system in the GST because we are not located in the SEZ zone.
If your registration is SEZ, you do not need e-invoice. If your registration is not SEZ, you need to do e-invoice. Export-oriented units have to use e-invoice. Thank you, Venugopal Gella, for answering the question on the chat. Yeah. So the next question I can see here in the chat is e-invoice required for transfer of stock from one warehouse to another warehouse in a different state. So the way I'll answer this question is, I am assuming you are preparing a tax invoice today to transfer stock from one state to the other. So if you are preparing a tax invoice, you have to generate an e-invoice for the same. Can e-invoice be backdated? Okay, so just to add, e-invoice is required for transfer of stock even within the same state across two different GST numbers. Yeah. Can e-invoice be generated backdated? Yes, the answer is yes. The portal allows you to generate old e-invoices today. However, you cannot generate future e-invoices. You cannot generate an e-invoice dated March 10th or March 9th today. However, you can generate yesterday's days. Our recommendation to all taxpayers is do not delay more than 2 to 3 days. However, the acknowledgement date will be today's date. So that also you should keep in mind. Your invoice date could be January 1st, 2022, but the invoice date will be today. The acknowledgement date will be today's date. So, and that will show up in the e-invoice when you see that. And it could lead to questions as to why you have not generated the invoice. So the next question we have. ERP system developed in-house and would like to integrate your API. You provide demo credential for testing. Yes, we provide demo credentials, and in this webinar right now, I will use demo credentials and I will show, I will generate an e-invoice and show it to you. You will see that.
Hello. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so basically our organization is a service industry, and we provide cost plus markup to our parent company. So normally whatever the cost, we book it on the last day of the month. But as you are aware that every cost is not be recognized on the last day. So we normally raise an invoice. Practically, we raise an invoice on 10th or 11th. Backdated. So what's your recommendation for that?
Backdated invoices are okay. So you can, you mean to say, okay, let's just take today's date. Today is 8th of March. You
Correct.
are going to raise an invoice dated February 28th today.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
So the government portal will allow you to do that. As per GST rules, you cannot do that.
Okay.
Correct now. So if you prepare an invoice today, it should be dated today. That is the rules. However, the portal will allow you. I think that's your specific question.
Yes.
And Reshma had asked if there is any mistake in the invoice, can I delete that bill? Yes, you can cancel the invoice. Again, I will show you practically. Within 24 hours, you can cancel that invoice. However, you cannot correct the errors.
So I have one question.
Go ahead, sir.
We are into UOU unit, but DTA sales also there in this, and even though UOU sales also there, UOU sales more than 20 crore, and even though DTA sales also, local sales also 20 crore, but we are into UOU unit. Is it mandatory to do the e-invoice for all, or only UOU will be part of different, or the local sales will be different?
No. So if your aggregate turnover, so these are two different GST number or in the same GST number?
Same GST number, same UOU unit only, but when we filing the APR and all, we have to mention the DTA sales separate and UOU sales will be separate. For that, we are doing the APR every year.
Yeah. So if you are, so in this case, e-invoice is applicable for all your transactions. Okay. Either you have to generate e-invoice or you do not have to generate e-invoice. That is all.
No, but you said that if you are into UOU unit, so no need to generate e-invoice like that. You told just I was.
If your GST registration is a special economic zone taxpayer, if your GST registration says, again, you can go and search it in the GST portal. There are different types of taxpayers: normal taxpayer, SEZ taxpayer, ISD taxpayer, composition. So many taxpayers are there. If you are an SEZ taxpayer, e-invoice you don't have to do. That's it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And so I did not mention about the type of transaction. And the other questions, so the most common questions that people ask me usually is, we have exempt sale. We have lots of exempt sale. That is about 20 crore. But our non-exempt sale is only 100 rupees. Do I have to generate e-invoice? The answer is yes. Once you are required to generate e-invoice if your aggregate turnover is more than 20 crore, and that aggregate turnover includes exempt turnover also. And aggregate turnover is the turnover of all the PANs put together, including turnover from one GST number to the other. Okay. So Reshma is asking, after we take e-invoicing, must we take e-way bill also? So the e-way bill rules have not changed. Whatever requirements you have to generate e-way bill, that will continue. So today you will generate e-invoice. After generating e-invoice, you will generate e-way bill. So that is all. Pravina Jolly, is e-invoice required for transferring goods from head office to your godown situated 40 kilometers away in the same state? If you are transferring goods on a delivery challan, delivery challans do not come under e-invoicing. So I'm assuming here the goods transfer is happening on a delivery challan. So let me go over the questions that I have prepared, and if I have left out any of your questions, you can ask again one more round later. So the common question that people ask: amendments, cancellations. Can I make changes? Can I change my books versus what is the change in the IRP portal? Ideally, the rule is telling whatever is registered in the IRP portal, that is an invoice. If it is not registered in IRP portal, it is not an invoice, right? So your books and the IRP portal should match. If you have made any error, yes, you can cancel the invoice within 24 hours. If you change it in your book, if you cancel the invoice, it will get cancelled in the IRP portal also. However, if you have passed the window of 24 hours, then you can cancel only in your books and make sure that in your GSTR1 you delete that invoice. And also you need to be careful that your e-waybill, you cannot have a active e-waybill. So when you cancel the invoice, before cancelling the invoice, you should cancel the e-waybill also. So I see some people typing in the chat. Just please wait for 5 minutes. I'll go over these few questions, and then you can ask them again, either in chat or on the audio. At what time is e-invoice required for a particular transaction? E-invoice is required if it's a movement of goods. Before commencing movement, you need to have the e-invoice, and if e-waybill applicable, you need to generate the e-waybill. If it is across the counter sale, for example, I'm going to Metro, DMart, Reliance. I'm buying something, I'm paying money, I am receiving the goods. That business has to immediately generate the e-invoice before giving me the goods. Invoice for services. Services, there is a rule, there is some gap between when the service is rendered and when you generate the invoice. So until that time, before you issue the invoice to the customer, you will have to generate the e-invoice and give the e-invoice to the customer. So people have asked me questions about e-waybills. How do they work? E-waybills work the same way. There is no change in the behavior of e-waybills. The rules are still the same. Only thing is that now that your invoice is actually going to the government portal, the NIC's portal, NIC runs both the e-invoice portal and e-waybill portal. They have made it a little bit easier. Along with your e-invoice, e-waybill can also be generated. You can generate e-waybill later as well. And IRP will support e-waybills only for invoice. For credit notes and debit notes, there is no e-waybill. And if you want to cancel the invoice, before cancelling the invoice, cancel the e-waybill, and then you can cancel the e-invoice. The most common question people ask is, how do I print the e-invoice? Firstly, printing of e-invoice is not required. However, if you are printing along with your regular contents of the invoice, you should print. In the printout, you should include the IRN number and the QR code. As per the rules, QR code in digital display is sufficient. So if some truck driver wants to show those details, if they can display their QR code to their officer, that is sufficient as per the rules. But if you are printing, you should print with IRN and the QR code number. How do you send the e-invoice to the customer? Today, IRP is not going to send it for you. The moment you generate e-invoice, it will not go reflect in the other parties. There is no portal for them to see. What you have to do is you have to send the invoice either through email, most common, or WhatsApp or SMS, whatever methods you have to email. Ideally, the acknowledgement JSON along with a PDF. So the government is coming up with a system, but it's been more than 1.5 years, more than 2 years almost. There is no way for the e-invoice to go and be sent to the recipient. What details of the e-invoice should we save in the in our ERP? If you are a software provider, if you are a business, what my advice is, whatever data that the software, the ERP gives you, save it in your ERP. There is no harm in saving all the details. But at a minimum, you should save the acknowledgement number, date, and the digitally signed invoice and the QR code, so that this is your proof. Later, you can show it to them. Until what time can I register an invoice? So this is the common question. Can I generate a backdated invoice? Yes, you can generate backdated invoice. There is somebody wants to unmute. So once my set of questions are over, I'll give you a chance to unmute. Okay. So anytime before issuing the invoice, you need to go register, and the invoice can be backdated, but in our recommendation is within 48 hours of the date of the invoice, try to generate the e-invoice. Can an e-invoice be cancelled? Yes, e-invoice can be cancelled within 24 hours. If you have generated e-invoice now, right now is 3:50 p.m. Until March 9th, 3:50 p.m., you can cancel. Beyond that, you cannot cancel the invoice. If you still want to cancel the invoice, you can cancel in your books of accounts and make sure that it doesn't go into the GSTR1. Can the e-invoice be modified? No. Invoice once prepared as per GST rules, even before e-invoicing, invoice once prepared, there is no such concept of modification. If you want, you can cancel the invoice. People ask, okay, can I issue another invoice with the same invoice number? No. Once the invoice has been generated with, let's say, number INV1, you can only use INV2, INV3, and so on. You cannot use INV1. So this invoice modification not possible. So what if I have generated invoice, I forgot to cancel? So cancel in the book of accounts. Make sure that in your GST returns, this invoice does not get reported. So here are some common errors that we have seen people face and do. So these are the invalid HSN codes. Please use the validator. The PIN code does not match the state. For example, the taxpayer state will be Karnataka, but the PIN code will say Maharashtra. Portal will not allow these things. We don't see anybody facing these issues once they get used to the system. But even for the 500 crores, 100 crores, 50 crores, the first day, first week, first month, people were facing all these issues. But once they get used to the system, things become easy. Again, we as a software provider, we are seeing the support requests. People support requests for the customers after the first few weeks. They don't disturb us. They are happily using the software. Everything is working fine. Occasionally people come, but again, that is to be expected. Okay, so let me go over briefly what is the e-invoice schema. So the government has given the schema, and these are the details in the e-invoice schema. So whatever details are there in the e-invoice will be shown present in the regular, whatever details are there in the invoice will be present in the electronic invoice also. You will have some header details like the invoice number, date, the type of transaction, the type of document, whether it is a tax invoice or a credit note, debit note, the details of your customer, details of who is selling, shipped to, bill from, dispatch from, all these details will be there in the schema. Instead of going too deep into these technical details, we are running a little bit short on time. So I will directly go into the demo and I will show you how to generate e-invoices through GSTZen. Just a second. How do I minimize this?
So anything you need?
No, I'm fine. So thank you. So let me first go I'll just take you to GSTZen software right in front of you. Again, lots of people have questions. How long does it take to generate an invoice? What do I have to do? I will prepare an invoice right here in front of you. and show it to you. So here is our GST number. I'm going to the sales register in GSTZen software, right? So we have already, this is a sales register. It shows the invoices that we have, the date, the supplier, the amount. I will prepare a new invoice in front of you and just show it to you right away. So this is the supplier, this is the recipient. I will pick some recipient that I have. This is the invoice number. Let us say, I'll just give a unique name so that we know this is webinar. I'll give today's date. Again, people ask backdated invoice, so I'll give March 1st as the date so that you can see. So this is my invoice number. So I have to enter the details of the items. So I'll give, let's say I'm selling tables. I have selling one table, 5,000 rupees. I'll sell a few chairs, let us say. I'll sell 4 chairs. Let's say a chair is 600 rupees. Hold on. Wait. Yeah, so this is my invoice. So this is the recipient, 40K plus education private limited. So this is what I'm selling. Here is the HSN code, quantity, tax rate. So this is a tax rate of 12%. This is 18%, so on and so forth. This is a regular invoice. You can view the PDF of this invoice here. Again, there is nothing special or fancy about this. This is a regular invoice. The key thing is that e-invoice here is not generated. So in GSTZen, what does it take to generate an e-invoice? I just have to press this button. Once I press the button, the e-invoice will go to the data will go to the government portal. And here you can see e-invoice generated. Here is a green tick to indicate that the e-invoice is generated. So this is the IRN number. This invoice is issued by the sandbox. We are testing this against the sandbox. And if you are using GSTZen, we have kept it here. We have people who are, after going live, we are still generating against the test server. So you should be clear that it's a test and not a real one. So that's why we have this. Here is the acknowledgement date and the acknowledgement number. And here is the acknowledgement. Now let me show you the PDF. You will be able to see the PDF here. Now the PDF contains the IRN number and the QR code. Further, I can download the acknowledgement JSON. I have it here with me. And so let me go to the e-invoice government portal. So the government portal has verify signed invoice. There is a utility here, and I can upload the acknowledgement JSON and I can verify. So you will be able to see this is a website run by the Government of India, NIC. You can verify that this is a valid invoice. The same QR code that I showed you in the PDF will come here. The same IRN number. Let's see the IRN number 5082. You will see the 5082, the same IRN number here. And again, other details of the invoice, the tables and chats. Pretty much whatever details are there in the invoice are available here with the government. So anybody can take your data and verify that this is a real invoice. And the exact timestamp is there. The timestamp is 3:58 on March 8, 2022. So this is a live invoice that I've generated just now. So this was a live demo of generating an e-invoice. I can also cancel the e-invoice. How long does it take to cancel? You just press a button, say yes. That is it. The invoice is already cancelled. So this is the IRN number. It says when it was cancelled. I generated at 3:58 p.m. At 4 p.m. the invoice is cancelled. So this is the process. You prepare the invoice, send to the government, and if you made a mistake, you can cancel it. So this is generating e-invoice through GSTZen. I will quickly show you the same thing with Excel. So I have an Excel file here. One second, let me share my How do I open Zoom now? I'll just share my full screen. So I just now generated an e-invoice using, I typed it and showed it to you. I am also going to generate the same thing through Excel. So here is an Excel file and I have the invoices prepared here. So the invoices, some invoices have one line, some invoices have multiple lines. So here is an invoice with multiple lines. Here is a debit note, DBN stands for debit note. And this is just invoice details. You can see the document type, date, number, supplier GST number, recipient GST number, ship to. There is also an export invoice here because there's no ship to GST number. So this is just invoice details. This is in GSTZen's template. GSTZen allows you to prepare invoice in your own template also. In any case, so here I have this file. So all I need to do to generate e-invoices in GSTZen, if I have the Excel file, is to go here, go to e-invoicing. We have multiple different solutions here. So you can have your own custom Excel. You can even upload a JSON file if you have a developer. If you want to test, simply upload a JSON file and you can test it. We also have integrations with the popular ERPs. So I'll use the Excel. I will just choose the file and I'll upload the Excel. So these details will come here. So there are 8 invoices in my file. They already come here. There are no errors. And these invoices are here. You can see that e-invoice not yet created. That's what this yellow circle means. The e-invoice is not yet created. Again, you can click here and you can view the PDF. So the same invoice, whatever I have prepared, you can see here, there is no IRN number or QR code. But now I just have to press one button saying upload e-invoice. Once I press this button, in a few seconds, GSTZen will go and generate e-invoices one by one. Yeah, you can see here, e-invoices are getting generated. You can see a success message. You can also see error messages. So there are some invoices here showing in red, indicating that we are not able to generate e-invoices for these. So let us open this invoice. Let us see what has happened. Hey, so it says this GST number is invalid. So yeah, so you'll have to now go and correct this GST number, and only then you will be able to generate the e-invoice. Okay, we saw the error case. Let us also see the good scenario. So here this invoice number 041, and you can see the time. It is 4:03 p.m. on 8th of March. Again, I'm generating this live. You upload this Excel, you got e-invoices ready. So that is all. So these are the very simple solutions. If you have in-house ERPs, you have other databases and all that, GSTZen has solutions for those as well. There are a few software developers here. So I will show them how to generate an e-invoice through GSTZen. And we also have a few demo GST numbers. So hold on for a minute. So let me go to GSTZen's API documentation. So GSTZen has given you a sample for demo purposes, API key and various GST numbers. So I have already populated these here. So this is my e-invoice JSON that I have here. So for just to make sure that this is clear, I will change this invoice number now. March 08 instead of 0001, I'll just put 0002. So this is 8th of March 2022. All I have to do is take the JSON, and I'll have to send to this particular address. Again, this is for software developers. Once I do that, in a few seconds, you can see that the e-invoice is generated. In fact, an e-way bill is also generated. Here is the distance, 1,350 kilometers, is IRN, QR code, so on and so forth. So all these details are available here. So this is how long it takes to generate an e-invoice. For software developers, GSTZen has various tools. So we have sample payloads. So we have a sample B2B payload, IGST, CGST, an export invoice, regular invoice with other charges, bill to, ship to, so many different details are there. You can simply go here. You can view the details. You can also view the JSON right here in the screen. So take it, if you are a software developer, take this, get started, and you should be able to generate your e-invoice. So since I'm running short on time, I'll just talk about, so these are the solutions that we have. So I showed you live generate e-invoice through multiple methods in GSTZen. So you can incorporate these things, the APIs in your own software. So if you have a click button in ERP, you can generate e-invoice very quickly. You press a button, if you work with your developer to use our APIs, and you should be able to generate e-invoices very quickly. If you have other software, like if you have a database, and if you do not have a developer to connect to the database, get in touch with us. We can work with you. We also have the Excel connectors I just showed to you. And we have integrations for Tally, SAP, and the other, some of the common ERP. So that is the overview of our solutions. And I am happy, we just saw the live demo. And here is an overview of our pricing. Take a look at this, and I'm happy to take any questions. Either you may type it in the chat or ask us. Yeah, so if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand. We can unmute you. Raise your hand in the chat, admin. Hold on, I'm not seeing you. I can see you on the raising your hand on the video. Can you please raise your hand here on Zoom? So please raise. There is a raise hand button in Zoom. Could you please press that?
Understand. So we have a query now.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Basically, ours is construction industry, and we have movement of the goods from one project to other project within the city. Normally, we are doing along with now with e-way. So, is it required the e-invoicing also for that? The transfer of the goods, it is within the warehouses from one place to other place. For example, from Majestic to Nalagata Road or anything within the city.
So you are moving it using a delivery challan, is that correct,
yes.
Sir?
Yeah. We are doing through the delivery challan along with e-way.
Delivery challan means e-invoice is not applicable.
It's not applicable.
E-invoice is only for tax invoice, credit note, debit note.
Fine. Yeah, and you are saying about that. See, we are in construction industry, and we will be raising a bill to our principal employer. Okay, the principal employer. Okay. This is not like as any goods or anything. It is something called as a BOQ, bill of quantities, with lot of works which is carried out, which will be accumulated into the cubic feet basis, square feet basis, metric ton basis. So this type of invoices also been required to be done in e-invoicing.
Whatever you report in your regular invoice,
okay,
you can report it in the e-invoice. There are fields for that. See,
naturally, presently what we are doing is, we say that execution of civil works with HSN code, specific HSN code, will put the value and will raise the bill. We'll raise the bill in the Excel format, and the same thing will upload in the GSTZen.
So against the same thing, you can generate e-invoice, sir.
Actually, the same thing in the same procedure, same feedbacks to be given to that same thing.
Same procedure, whatever. Yeah. So I'm assuming along with your invoice, you're giving some workings, correct?
Yeah. It's a lot of people.
A lot of people provide those workings.
We call that as a measurement sheets, LBH.
Correct, sir. I'm aware. So again, these are the measurement sheet. Usually, is not a part of the invoice. It is an attachment.
It is the supporting document to verify the invoice from the principal employee by the principal employee.
So it's a supporting document. So you can ignore those details. You don't have to provide those details in the e-invoice.
What is the HSN code for the providing of the service? We'll put the
Correct.
HSN code, nature as a providing of the service, and we'll put the value of the bill.
That's correct. Yes.
Fine. That was
Someone
the
says your screen is not visible. I am able to see it. So please check.
able to see. We are able to see also.
Yeah. So any other questions? You can type it on chat or ask to unmute.
Now the thing is,
Sorry. Could you please repeat, sir?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, we are operating through the Tally. We are meeting up for books of accounts through Tally. So again,
Yes, sir.
anything is to be required to be added into that in order to process for the e-invoicing.
Yes, sir. So GSTZen's e-invoice solution contains support for Tally, and we will give you a TDL and we will install that for you.
Actually, that means we have to buy this from your end. What you are saying, the code at 7,500 rupees. Rupees for the
That is
Tally.
correct, sir.
This is including of GST or other than that?
All amounts here are exclusive of GST, sir.
Yes.
You will get the input tax credit.
Okay. Can I get your contact number or anything like that so that we can coordinate with you for the
We'll do that. Hold on. So here are our contact details. So please do get in touch with us.
Okay.
You can also reply back to the email. When you have registered for the webinar, you would have received an email. You can reply back. These are our contact details. Please do get in touch with us.
Okay.
Any other questions on the chat?
No.
I think there were questions about number of line items in the HSN code. Yeah, so Tally Prime has a free version of the GST invoice. You should take a look at that also. Okay, sample JSON for debit note. Yeah, we will provide you a little bit later. However, the only difference between a debit note and an invoice is that there is a field called document type where you mention that it's a debit note. We get in touch with our team and we will provide it to you. Yeah, so we need to register on the e-invoice portal. That is correct. 8-digit HSN is mandatory. That is that's
All
correct.
questions
Yes.
in the chat are answered, Suriya. It's a 6-digit.
Okay, 6-digit HSN. Okay. Okay. Thank you all for your time and attention. Do get in touch with us for your e-invoicing needs. To summarize, we showed you in the live demo generating e-invoices through our software, through Excel, and through our APIs. Get in touch with us. We understand there is a lot of diversity in terms of the types of solutions businesses are using. We'd be happy and we'd be able to support you in complying with the e-invoice requirements. Thank you very much for your time. We'll end the webinar shortly.